Now 67, Sharon Stone is finally breaking her silence, and confirming what Hollywood has whispered about for decades. For years, she's been more than just a movie star, she's been a symbol of danger, brilliance, and power. And it all began with one unforgettable role. Basic Instinct didn't just make Sharon a star, it made her a mystery the world couldn't stop trying to solve. But behind the fame, the scandal, and that infamous scene, there was a truth she never dared to reveal, until now. When Basic Instinct exploded onto screens in 1992, it didn't just launch Sharon Stone's career, it ignited a cultural firestorm. Overnight, she went from a rising actress to a global obsession. One scene, just a few seconds long, became the most paused, debated, and censored moment in movie history. It shocked audiences, shattered boundaries, and redefined what it meant to take risks in Hollywood. Sharon didn't just play Catherine Trammell, she became her, fearless, seductive, and dangerously intelligent. But behind the power and the legend was a reality far more complicated. Now, more than 30 years later, Sharon Stone is finally revealing the truth about that infamous scene, and the price she paid for it. What she's confessed has reignited one of Hollywood's most controversial conversations, and it changes everything we thought we knew. From a quiet Pennsylvania town to the dazzling glare of Hollywood, Sharon Stone's journey was never meant to be ordinary. Born on March 10, 1958, in Meadville, Pennsylvania, she grew up far from fame, in a modest, working-class home where faith, discipline, and practicality ruled. Her mother, Dorothy, was an accountant, her father, Joseph, a factory worker. Life was simple, structured, and strict. But even then, Sharon wasn't like anyone else. With a reported IQ of 154, she was a prodigy, skipping grades, outsmarting teachers, and dreaming far beyond the confines of small-town life. Yet, behind the brilliance was a haunting darkness. In her 2021 memoir The Beauty of Living Twice, Sharon revealed a secret she had carried for decades, that both she and her sister were sexually abused as children by their grandfather. It was a trauma that carved deep scars but also forged her fierce resilience, the same strength that would later define her as one of Hollywood's most formidable women. Her rise to fame wasn't built on glamour alone, it was born from survival. At just 14, Sharon's world nearly shattered when she was thrown from a horse that bolted straight into a clothesline, leaving her neck badly injured and her future uncertain. For most, it would have been the end of a dream. For Sharon, it became another scar that proved she was unbreakable. By the time she graduated from Sagertown High School in 1975, she was already looking beyond the narrow horizons of Meadville, ready to chase something far greater. At only 15, Sharon earned a creative writing scholarship to Edinburgh State College, a testament to her sharp intellect and relentless drive. But the small-town campus couldn't hold someone destined for more. Then came the moment that changed everything, a local beauty pageant. After being crowned Miss Crawford County, she advanced to compete for Miss Pennsylvania in 1976. There, one judge gave her life-changing advice: leave college. Move to New York. You're meant to model. For most teenagers, that would have been a terrifying leap. But not for Sharon Stone. She packed her bags, left her small-town life behind, and moved in with her aunt in New Jersey. Within a year, her bold gamble paid off. She signed with the legendary Ford modeling agency in New York City, stepping onto the path that would transform her from a hometown girl into an icon in the making. In 1977, Sharon Stone transformed from the vibrant, restless girl from Pennsylvania into a working model in the world's most dazzling city. Soon after, Europe beckoned. She resided in Milan and then Paris, immersing herself in the fashion capitals, walking runways, and participating in photo shoots. However, she soon realized that modeling alone was insufficient. Beneath the glamorous poses and photo shoots, Sharon yearned for something deeper. She later recounted the pivotal moment when she made her choice. She packed her belongings, returned to New York, and queued up to be an extra in a Woody Allen film. This led to her role in Stardust Memories in 1980, where she was cast at the young age of 20. Although her part was minor, it ignited a passion within her. Acting provided her with the opportunity to truly express herself, unlike modeling. Just a year later, she landed a speaking role in the horror film Deadly Blessing, signaling that she was determined not to fade into obscurity among the sea of aspiring actors. Initially, the roles were small, but Sharon was tenacious. French director Claude Luch offered her a fleeting role in Loin's Aliotra in 1982. Following that, she made television appearances in Silver Spoons, Bay City Blues, Remington Steele, Magnum P.I., and T.J. Hooker. Each role served as a stepping stone, honing her skills while keeping her name relevant. Her first significant film role came in Irreconcilable Differences in 1984, a drama featuring Ryan O'Neal, Shelley Long, and a young Drew Barrymore. Critics began to take notice of her presence and her ability to command a scene, even when the script provided little material. She then ventured into the adventure genre, starring alongside Richard Chamberlain in King Solomon's Mines and its sequel, Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold. Although the films received poor reviews, Sharon's spirited and sharp-tongued performance shone through. While critics dismissed the storylines, many acknowledged that she possessed the spark of a heroine capable of holding her own in a male-dominated industry. Nevertheless, Hollywood was not yet ready to recognize her talent. For her role in Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold, she received her first Golden Raspberry nomination for Worst Actress. For most people, the kind of public criticism Sharon faced in her early career would have been crushing. But for her, it was nothing more than background noise. Through the late 80s, she refused to fade away, grinding her way through Hollywood with a determination that few could match. She took every role she could find, no matter how small or unconventional. From the sprawling ABC miniseries War and Remembrance to a quick turn as a reporter in Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, Sharon kept showing up. She dove into darker, edgier roles in Cold Steel and Above the Law, proving she could handle grit just as fiercely as glamour. By 1988, she was sharing the screen with action heavyweights like Steven Seagal and Carl Weathers, holding her own with sharp confidence and magnetic screen presence. Sharon Stone might not have been a household name yet, but she was impossible to miss. Every project was another brick in the foundation of her legacy, a masterclass in persistence, danger, and seductive intelligence. The 80s didn't hand Sharon instant stardom. Instead, they forged her resilience. She learned how to command attention, how to make a scene hers, and how to turn rejection into fuel. Hollywood didn't know it yet, but Sharon Stone was a storm-gathering strength, and when she finally broke through, she would change the game completely. That breakthrough came in 1990. No longer just another ambitious actress, Sharon landed the role that would launch her into the stratosphere, Paul Verhoeven's sci-fi action hit Total Recall, starring opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger. Her performance as Laurie, the devoted wife with a deadly secret, was electric. She was sweet, cunning, and terrifying all at once. It wasn't just another supporting role, it was a warning shot to Hollywood. Sharon Stone wasn't here to play it safe, she was here to dominate. The movie made over $260 million worldwide and blew up at the box office. The audiences were captivated. The critics were impressed. And all of a sudden, Sharon had the momentum and credibility she had been striving for years. Offers started to come in after Total Recall demonstrated that she could compete with the top action star of the time. She starred in 5 consecutive movies by 1991 alone. Sharon became into a movie chameleon that year. Roger Ebert characterized her as the stereotypical bad girl in He Said, She Said. She took on the role of an alley-repressed woman in Scissors. She played a deceitful ex-lover in the noir-inspired Where Sleeping Dogs Lie, slipped into luxury and elegance in Diary of a Hitman, then changed into a fearless photojournalist in Year of the Gun. Although none of these performances helped her become well-known, they did highlight her versatility, boldness, and defiance of convention. The year that everything changed was 1992. She received a call from Paul Verhoeven. This time, it was for the part that would permanently mark her in the annals of popular culture, not a supporting one. Basic Instinct was no ordinary movie. It was a high-stakes wager that was full of risk, intrigue, and sensuality. Catherine Trell, a smart bisexual novelist with a sharp mind and a terrifying grin, was at the center of it all. She was a woman who might be playing tricks on everyone or possibly a killer. It was an extremely dangerous part that was full of controversy, nudity, and enough edge to turn most actresses away. And a lot of people did just that. Others were first offered the part, but they declined. Sharon did not recoil. The response to the film when it was released in theaters was electrifying. On the movie itself, critics had differing opinions. But there was no denying Sharon. Verhoeven had created a cinematic wet dream, according to Rolling Stone writer Peter Travers. However, Sharon's performance, which he described as star-making, was the one that blazed across the screen. He said that although she had previously been the star of far too many unmemorable movies, Basic Instinct provided her with the opportunity to demonstrate that she was more than just a lovely face. In a single scene, she could make you chuckle, wriggle, and feel uneasy. Shannon J. is an Australian critic. Harvey praised it as one of the top early 1990s movies. He even asserted that it had a greater impact on female empowerment than any feminist demonstration. He pointed out that viewers agreed that Sharon was both hot and icy cold. With a global box office total of over $350 million, the movie solidified her as the decade's new femme deadly. Ironically, Sharon received a Golden Raspberry nomination for Worst New Star, for MTV Movie Award nominations, and a Golden Globe nomination for her performance. Hollywood may make fun of it. Detractors might argue, but one thing was certain. Now, Sharon Stone was a very different animal. However, she was never intended to play the part that made a legend. How Sharon Stone overcame adversity to get the Catherine Tremel role. Hollywood had its sights set on something else before Sharon Stone played the ultimate femme lethal, Catherine Trell, in Basic Instinct. She wasn't considered when writing the role. First, it was made available to a procession of celebrities. The top stars of the early 90s, Brooke Shields, Julia Roberts, Meg Ryan, and Michelle Pfeiffer, all declined. The nudity made some people laugh. Some didn't like the tone. On that ranking, Sharon came in at number 13. Nevertheless, she was the one who desired the role the most. She subsequently acknowledged that she kept the screenplay posted to her refrigerator for 8 months because she was so focused on manifesting the part. "This is mine. I will get this role," she told herself each day. For 8.5 months, Sharon persevered through screen tests and auditions while other actresses left. However, resistance persisted even after she battled her way into the spotlight. It got more intense. When Julia Roberts formally declined, Michael Douglas, who had already committed to the role of male lead, almost gave up on the project. He didn't initially choose Sharon. She laughed as she remembered that initially he wouldn't even test her. They had a strained relationship, and Sharon was not given the same respect as Douglas. The disparity was evident when the movie was eventually approved with her in the major role. The poster didn't even include her name. It bore the name Michael Douglas. Instinctual. Sharon's name was not visible, but her face was there, looking directly into the camera. Nevertheless, she benefited from that slight. The same question was asked by patrons as they left theaters. "That chick is who?" Every frame had been dominated by her. But she was even more fascinating without a name to go with it. It was equally tense behind the scenes. Sharon remembered how difficult the film's production was. They encountered pushback from the industry, opposition on the streets where they shot, and persistent rumors about whether such a daring production would even make it. She was aware that she was not entering a position of safety. She had entered a storm. The scene of the interrogation followed, which would come to characterize Sharon's whole career as well as Basic Instinct. She disclosed decades later that it was recorded without her explicit permission and that she was unaware of the full scope of what the camera would record. In the history of film, it became one of the most talked about scenes. An unending rerun of a moment that was equally acclaimed and hated. For Sharon, it was a very personal betrayal as well as a moment that made her famous. Other aspects of the power disparity were also glaring. Basic Instinct brought about $14 million from Michael Douglas. Sharon Stone made $500,000. The disparity in pay was startling. Nevertheless, her performance is the one that has been ingrained in popular culture. The one that gave a new generation a fresh definition of the female deadly archetype. Furthermore, if it weren't for her manager's blatant insolence, Sharon might not have ever been given the opportunity to try out. No one would give her the script, she disclosed in a recent interview with Business Insider. It wasn't even mentioned on site by Verhoeven, who had directed her in Total Recall. Chuck Binder, her manager, was so desperate that he actually broke into the office using a credit card to open the lock and took the script for her. Sharon initially learned about Basic Instinct in this way. The gamble paid off when she read it, claimed it, and said, "This part is mine." In addition to earning 2 Academy Award nominations and grossing over $350 million worldwide, Basic Instinct made Sharon Stone a household name. It was divisive, contentious, and unforgettable. And the focal point of it all was her. Michael Douglas and Sharon Douglas laughed off their difficult beginning years later. Although she acknowledged that he didn't seem to want her as a co-star at the time, she now refers to him as a great friend and someone she greatly admires. Although Sharon remembered their first altercation clearly, a Douglas representative claimed he couldn't recall any arguments from that period. In the end, what made it onto the screen was what counted. A fiery relationship that held viewers' attention. In hindsight, Catherine Tremell was never meant to be Sharon Stone. She was neither the first pick, the safe choice, nor even the 10th. However, she was the right decision. She didn't simply alter her career with one part either. She changed Hollywood's perception of what it meant to be a strong woman. The crazy love life of Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone seemed to control the news not too long ago. She became well known with her iconic performance in Basic Instinct and her powerful role in Casino, and her romantic life received as much attention as her films. Stone has had 2 marriages over the years, been involved with some of Hollywood's most attractive men, and been involved in a variety of romantic relationships, from stunning to downright scandalous. Her first marriage happened quickly and without warning. Sharon got to know producer Michael Greenberg in 1984 while they were working on the television film The Vegas Strip War. They chose to be married in a matter of months since they clicked right away. Right there on the stage on August 18, the couple said, "I do." However, passion soon gave way to issues. They split in 1987, just 3 years later, and divorced in 1990. After a while, Greenberg remarried actress Nikki Smough in 2000. The filming of the 1988 miniseries War and Remembrance was one of the more explosive chapters, even though Sharon had already entered a maelstrom of new romances. Stone collaborated with Hart Bossner, a Canadian actor who is the son of legendary actor Lloyd Bochner. He portrayed a young sailor on screen. He and Sharon allegedly had an affair off-screen. The twist is that at the time, she and Greenberg were still wed. When it was all over, Hart made headlines by accusing Stone of being the Antichrist in an interview with People magazine. It was disorganized. It was widely known and established the tone for her flaming reputation. Both Sharon and her romances were on the rise by the early 1990s. She had a brief relationship with Steve Bing in 1991, who was the heir to the illustrious Bing and Bing real estate fortune. Throughout the 1990s and even into the early 2000s, when Bing tragically committed suicide in 2020, the two were frequently spotted together. Their romance came and went throughout the years. Stone acknowledged how severely it impacted her. She described him as a complex man who didn't always make the best decisions, but she also acknowledged that she was devastated by his passing. A country spin followed. Wearing a black satin gown and his trademark cowboy hat, Sharon rode on the arm of singer Dwight Yoakam to the 1992 Academy Awards. Although they appeared to be the most attractive new couple in Hollywood, their romance hardly survived the red carpet. Before the romance ended, that Oscar night ended up being their only significant appearance together. Sparks took off once more that year, this time accompanied by movie producer Bill McDonald. The two became close enough that McDonald left his wife, Naomi Baca, after they met on the set of Sliver in 1993. An engagement resulted from the whirlwind. However, it burned out in a year. Their romance was over by 1994. Her marriage to journalist Phil Bronstein, editor of the San Francisco Chronicle, in 1998 may have been her most committed partnership. Rowan is the boy they adopted together. And Sharon appeared to have achieved stability for a spell. However, the marriage ended in 2004. Even worse, their divorce descended into violence. The court determined that Sharon had a propensity to overreact to Rand's medical problems, and Bronstein was granted full custody of him. According to one notorious detail from the case, she even allegedly desired Botox injections to prevent her infant son's feet from perspiring. The court wasn't persuaded, despite Sharon's denial. She was crushed by the loss. She acknowledged that she could not function after losing primary custody in her memoir, The Beauty of Living Twice. She spoke about how she cried uncontrollably and felt that her son's return was the only thing that mattered. After incorporating her last name into his own, Rand, who is currently 22 years old, became Rand Joseph Bronstein Stone. Since then, he has forged his own career as a culinary student. He's the joy of my life, as Sharon frequently refers to him. She proudly raised Leard and Quinn, her two adoptive sons, as a single mother over the years. The tabloids were captivated by her post-divorce romances. She dated Swedish businessman Johan Alash in 2011, who reportedly showered her with praise and accompanied her to the Oscar afterparties. The relationship ended a year later, but not before Sharon publicly stated that it was based on adoration and respect. A gentler voice than the flaming entanglements of her past. Sharon Stone is 67 years old, single, and enjoying her life. She has turned the page after decades of public heartbreaks, brief relationships, and scandals that made headlines. In her own words, she is relishing every moment of this chapter, demonstrating that Sharon Stone has never followed anyone else's rules, only her own, even when she is in love. But her path is more than just love stories. Sharon has carried a memory that is far more significant than any romance, even away from the flashing cameras and gossip columns. A recollection that speaks of agony rather than passion. Suffering at a Hollywood executive's hands. One of Hollywood's most brazen women for many years has been Sharon Stone. Never be scared to tell the truth off-screen or to startle viewers on-screen. However, beneath the celebrity, Sharon has a darker side that she has only lately chosen to share. Sharon revealed details of one of her first and most painful experiences in Hollywood in an open conversation on Kelly Ripa's Let's Talk Off Camera podcast. She was asked to meet with a senior official at Sony Pictures in the early 1980s, before she was well known. It seemed like a dream at first. The CEO lavished her with praise, kept her waiting impatiently, and gave her hope that this encounter would make all the difference in the world. Then the unimaginable occurred. Sharon remembered the executive's abrupt approach, unzipping, and revealing himself directly in front of her. His remarks were terrifying. First, though, she recalled simultaneously crying and smiling. She was in shock, caught in that frenzied, horrifying reaction that trauma frequently elicits, not because she thought it was humorous. After a while he slipped back behind his desk and nestled himself in again. Sharon was shocked and humiliated when his secretary came to escort her out of the room, leading her to believe he had departed. She made it apparent that this was not an isolated incident, but she never disclosed his identity. Hollywood was a minefield for women, particularly in the 1980s and 1990s. Sharon described how producers pushed her to have sex with co-stars in order to build chemistry on screen in her memoir, The Beauty of Living Twice. She eventually gave names to one of those contacts in a subsequent interview with Louis Theroux. Sharon claims that during the 1993 filming of Sliver, she was advised to have an affair with her co-star William Baldwin by Robert Evans, the renowned Paramount producer of The Godfather. He claimed that Sharon was the issue since she refused to relax and that Baldwin's performance was insufficiently forceful. She claimed that Fury Tin Hearts Evans boasted about having slept with Ava Gardner while strutting around his office wearing sunglasses. Subsequently said that Baldwin's performance would magically improve if she had sex with him. Sharon's answer was harsh. She talked about how, because she refused to cooperate, she was called a tight ass and not a true actress. She made a straightforward point. She possessed the basic instinct to generate electricity without ever having to sleep with Michael Douglas. Douglas arrived professional, practiced, and ready. In addition to being offensive, the notion that she had to degrade herself for the sake of a co-star was the type of Hollywood chauvinism that destroyed her career. Sharon maintains that the industry betrayed her, even though she received an Oscar nomination for her portrayal as Ginger McKenna in Martin Scorsese's Casino. Because the industry wasn't prepared to allow a woman like her to dominate, she said director Francis Ford Coppola told her she wouldn't win the Academy Award that year, not because she didn't deserve it. Susan Sarandon won the Oscar for her film Dead Man Walking. The parts dried up after Sharon went to the ceremony, put on a brave face, and smiled through it all, but afterwards said, "You have to pretend it's fantastic and it's not fantastic." Hollywood failed to capitalize on her talent, labeling her as frigid, tough, or hard to cast. As a result, she was forced into minor roles in movies like Catwoman, Lovelace, and Basic Instinct 2, despite her best efforts. She became the invisible actress, as she put it. Why this occurred has never been a source of shyness for Sharon. According to her, the industry didn't want her to be successful. Not after she demonstrated her ability to compete with men like Robert De Niro and Michael Douglas. What happens if she performs again and receives a nomination in place of Robert De Niro? She remembered being informed that was not what we wanted to happen. Hollywood, in her opinion, always found it easier to ignore her than to recognize her influence. Sharon, however, would not remain silent. She exposed the harsh gender pay disparity in 2015, stating that she was still receiving pitiful compensation after Basic Instinct in comparison to her male colleagues. She recalled sobbing to her manager while sitting in her kitchen and promising not to work until she received appropriate compensation. Even at that time, she said, "I still got paid so much less than any man." Sharon Stone has stayed true to herself, unrepentant, unvarnished, and unapologetically honest. Her tales are more than just admissions, whether they deal with exploitation, harassment, or the prejudice of Hollywood. They serve as a reminder of the struggles faced by women in the field and the ongoing need for change. Sharon Stone, now 66, is at last proving what we all suspected. Regarding the part that made her a legend, Sharon Stone has always been brutally honest. Furthermore, the reality is far less glamorous than what the headlines portray. Basic Instinct has been following her around like a shadow for decades. Not only because of Catherine Trell's cold genius, but also because of the interrogation scene, which altered the course of film history forever. Looking back, Sharon acknowledges that she had conflicting emotions about that particular occasion. She claims that although the scene made her famous, it did not earn her respect. She was made famous, but she was also stuck with a perception that she didn't entirely accept. And that's because, as Sharon disclosed in The Beauty of Living Twice, her memoir, she didn't quite think she had committed to what the world witnessed. She claims that she was informed in a casual, almost technical way on the day of filming that the white of her underwear was reflecting light and interfering with the camera. The request was straightforward: take them off for the picture. Nothing explicit will be seen, she was told. She didn't realize what had been filmed until she was sitting in a darkened auditorium with the director and a crowd. For the first time, she saw the famous shot that would go down in movie history. She was so shocked that she rushed to the projection booth, slapped Paul Verhoeven across the face, hurried to her car, and called her attorney right away. For his side, Verhoeven has consistently denied lying to her. Although he maintained that Sharon was fully aware of what was being filmed, Sharon's account of what happened presents a much more ambiguous picture. And yet with time her anger softened into something more complex. Speak Me Now, she admits she believes none of them fully understood what they were developing in that second. While the director found out what he had, he could not deliver himself to reduce it. And he or she ultimately understood why. Due to the fact right here's the twist. Sharon had the criminal right to call for that the shot be eliminated. She may want to have erased it from records. But whilst the dust settled and the fury cooled, she made the choice to depart it in. Why? Due to the fact stepping returned from the private sting, she recognized that the scene, as uncomfortable because it became for her, made the movie what it was. Catherine Tremell would not have been Catherine Trell without that flash of risk. That unsettling jolt that made audiences sit up and gasp. Today, Sharon speaks approximately it with a combination of clarity and peace. She and Verhoeven, regardless of their public disagreements, remain on remarkable terms. She calls their relationship superb, insists she might paintings with him again in a second, and says they both absolutely apprehend what happened, even if they speak about it differently to the sector. So yes, that interrogation scene defined Sharon Stone. It made her a family name, a cultural lightning rod, and an everlasting fixture in Hollywood records. However, behind the icon was a girl who needed to wrestle with betrayal, rage, and sooner or later reputation. She did not just become Catherine Trell. She lived through the fallout of being her. And that's what makes Sharon's legacy so much extra haunting, powerful, and unforgettable. What do you watched of Sharon Stone's overall performance in Simple Intuition? Did she absolutely personal the role of Catherine Trell? And which scene nonetheless gives you chills in spite of everything those years? Drop your thoughts within the comments. Remember to like this video, percentage it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button so that you don't omit what's coming subsequent. And if you're nonetheless in the temper for Hollywood secrets, go in advance and click the subsequent video in your screen. You are going to like it.